Good morning, Geauga County, Lake County, Northeastern Ohio. You are listening to the Voice of Geauga, where you will I can't talk this morning, Jonathan. You may have to take over. Where you're going to be informed, enlightened, and entertained Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., right here on Voice of Geauga. If you'd like to take part in the program today, 440-946-9468. You can email us at voiceofgeauga@gmail.com. If you're streaming, I put both the number and the email address on our page. If you're plugged into Rumble, and I see some people starting to check into the channels that we're up. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. And so we're live streaming, and you can take part and chat with us. We had a lively chat discussion yesterday with everybody that showed up on Rumble. And so you can also, by the way, we don't mention this as often as we should probably, stream us on your phone. If you're driving around, going into work, you got your earbuds in, and you're sitting at work and want to just listen to the program 7 to 8. Monday through Friday. You can do that by either going to Wint Radio, and there's a live stream button on their website. You can also go to Voice of Geauga website, and there is a stream button. It's a little mic icon on the bottom of the front page. You click on that, and you'll be live streamed. And I know that works because I have used that as I've traveled various places and live streamed this program, and it works fantastic. So I'm wearing my Trump hat this morning for everybody who's watching. This is my celebration. Yes, I'm a Trump supporter, and if you're not, we'd love to hear from you because I want to hear why. But in 440-946-9468, President Trump gave the State of the Union address last night to Congress, and I thought he just did a fantastic job. And I'm sad for the country in that there were Democrats that would sit there with a grumpy look on their face and not even smile, do nothing. We had one Congressman, Al Green, a gentleman that has a cane and is often very bombastic, and he got removed early because he was going to get up and yell and scream and disrespect the president. But President Trump was successful last night, unlike the last State of the Union, and getting Democrats to stand up a few times. Even Elizabeth Warren stood up once when President Trump mentioned a program that he was going to get started, and she agreed with him. And so, generally speaking, the Democrats sat there with a grumpy look on their face, even when President Trump said, stand if you support the United States over illegal aliens, Americans over illegal aliens, and the Democrats did not stand up. So obviously it's clear who they stand with. It is not Americans. They don't love America. It's sad to say. I'm very disheartened because my dad was a Democrat when I was growing up. It was a whole different Democrat Party back then. The Democrat Party today, I'm very, very concerned about. And maybe the Democrat Party can start righting its own ship before it thinks it's going to save America. But he talked about a lot of the good stuff that's happening. He's digging us out of a hole. He recognized that. He said, look, we had a deep hole to dig out of. But he mentioned a number of things, prices decreasing, incomes increasing, and a lot of the positive things that are happening. And so I was up late last night, so I'm stumbling this morning trying to get my head together because I was up late last night listening to that address and was happy about it. I mean, I couldn't leave. It was very engaging, and it was an hour and 45 minutes or 48 minutes. So, Jonathan, I know you listened to part of it, and that's not going to be the topic for today's discussion, but I just wanted to mention what a great job he did last night, and not only for him personally, but for America, because of all the things that he's doing that are positive. And we've got to wake up and realize, the polling seems to say, people are concerned about affordability. I'm still not convinced this whole affordability thing is what the claim is, and we let the news media lead us off into the ditch on that. And we've got to start realizing what's happening, watching more closely. But I was very excited about last night. So anyway, I'll flip that over to you. You can make whatever comments and introduce the topic of the day.
Well, the first thing is that I joined Joe Miller on Ohio Political News to live stream the State of the Union speech last night. And an interesting thing happened. We were making comments. Vivek Ramaswamy was on with Fox. He was sort of doing the pre-State of the Union discussion with Fox News. He came up, and the Ohio governor's race came up, and I made some comments about Casey Putsch, who has been a guest of ours on Ohio Political News, and Heather Hill and her running mate Stewart, who have been guests on Ohio Political News as well. And it turns out that Heather Hill and Stewart were both in our guests online, and they were commenting how much they like Ohio Political News. Well, actually Joe invited them on. So Heather Hill and her running mate for lieutenant governor joined us. If you go back and watch that, you will see me for about the first 45 minutes. But I was concerned about being awake and bright and being here and available to our audience for this show. So I actually only watched until about 9:30. I cut out to get some end-of-the-day stuff wrapped up, tried to get in bed at a reasonable hour so that I could be up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning. A couple of things that I'll throw in, and then I want to introduce the topic of the day, and that is going to be Ohio House Bill 314. So while I'm talking, you may want to look that up and familiarize yourself. But the first thing to know is that if you are a fan of Bob Frantz, if you're a follower of Bob Frantz, he is filling in for a radio show host in, I believe it's Houston, Texas, remotely, all this week. So he pre-recorded shows Monday through Friday this week, and I was actually his guest for Monday. You may want to go and look up, you'll find it on Rumble, and look up the Bob Frantz Show. There's a little bit more about some of the things that I talk about from the world of finance that you may find interesting. The feedback so far has been very good on that program. It is Bob Frantz interviewing me, and it dropped 2 days ago, Monday. Last thing, as sort of a housekeeping note, for anybody that follows me on social media, I run Unwoke Academy. That is actually a website, unwoke.academy. And today at noon, for the first time ever, I'm very excited about this, we're having our own private live stream at noon. You'll find more information at Unwoke Academy about what that's about. I hope that lots of people come in and join us. So yes, in addition to this radio show, Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. at WINT Radio, I'm also co-host of Ohio Political News, and I run a podcast that now has over 23 million views called Unwoke Academy. Anyway, back to our subject. This was brought to my attention by Jeff Skinner, who is, or indirectly by Jeff Skinner, who is a guest on this program, and he is a Geauga resident. Jeff Skinner writes for a news media publication called the Ohio Register. You should go and find it, follow Jeff Skinner and the Ohio Register. He sometimes refers to it as TOR for short, the Ohio Register. But here's this article that dropped 2 days ago on February 23rd. It's a short and sweet article, but it's frightening. It has to do with what are referred to as FOIA, or Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. The design and intention of the Freedom of Information Act is to give we the people access to information about our government and how it runs. If we think we see something, or we want to just look into some issue or subject or topic having to do with our government, we have the ability to request information from our government. And actually, hold the phones 1 second. Let me back up briefly. I missed something. In my show notes, I do want to pause briefly and back up. I'm going to come back to the Freedom of Information Act and Ohio's proposed House Bill 314, but I almost forgot something. Skip on the issue of affordability, I think what we have, and we should, for the sake of our audience, pause to drill down a little bit. It came up on Monday's program with our guest. It came up again yesterday, and we focused on it. And you just mentioned it again because the left and the media, the Democrats are going to be pushing on it. I want to be clear, at least about my position. Affordability is absolutely an issue. It is a critical issue to many, to most. And affordability is daunting. When you look at retirees struggling on fixed income, youth trying to make a start in life, people trying to buy a home, I don't want to sound dismissive of those issues. They are real. They are legitimate. Unfortunately, what we find often is that the far left will create mayhem in government, create issues, push for horrible policy and overspending and overtaxation, and then when there's a negative result, say what we need is more government to fix it. I think, in my book, that's where we are with the whole affordability issue. We have governors like Tim Walz, and we have people throughout Ohio and many other states, especially California, that have overtaxed to beyond the point of burden into homelessness and struggle. And as a result, what they're saying effectively is you need more government.
We're into a break,
to,
Jonathan. So, sorry.
I'm sorry I missed that. More on the other side of the break. Welcome back to Voice of Geauga, WINT Radio, 101.5 FM, 1330 AM. You can also stream this audio via wintradio.com or go to voiceofgeauga.com and click the stream button if you're outside of that broadcast range. Before the break, which I almost missed there, thank you, Skip, I was just wrapping up some comments to hopefully put a little more perspective on the issue of affordability. Affordability is absolutely an issue for most Americans. However, I am suggesting that it is being used and abused for political purposes. That's the point that I wanted to make. Getting back to the issue of Freedom of Information Act, and Skip and I were discussing something interesting during the break, and that's the distinction between the federal Freedom of Information Act and the Ohio state level. Skip, what is it? Sunshine Law?
It's referred to as a Sunshine Law, and it's got two parts. The Sunshine Law has the Open Meeting Act and the Public Records Act, and what they're amending or trying to amend on House Bill 314 is the Public Records Act. And so that act is to, what they say, what the media says, is to limit harassing or disruptive public information requests. I find it fascinating reading the language, which is very concerning to me, because if anybody reads the actual change, the language to the change, it's actually abusive to those people who make, and I make public information requests all the time in Ohio. Fact is, I've got a lawsuit, or I had a lawsuit over that recently. And so now the public entity, if they deem it harassing in their estimation, and I found the section here, and I'm doing that from memory, but it's if they deem it to be harassing or to be in any way disruptive to the public practice, then they get to sue citizens in the court. So they can sue somebody making a public information request, which is unheard of. It's ridiculous. Public request.
It's the opposite of good government.
Anything that's too broad or anything that seems harassing, they have a whole different method. If I make a public information request that's too broad, then they have a right to send me back a statement that says we can't respond to this because it's too broad. Or if it's harassing, they can always come back to me and say, no, we're not going to respond to this request because it's not for a good purpose. But the phrase, and I just found it, the public office or person has reason to believe that the requests are intended to harass the public office or person, to disrupt the essential functions of the public office or person. The public office or person may bring an action in the court. So if they just deem it, if they feel today, they wake up today and they feel like they're being harassed, then they can take it to the court and sue the person that's making the request. That is, what's the term? I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of, but it pushes back on people who are trying to make public information requests. Clearly, this is tended to thwart public information requests. And it's
what it reminds
not
me
right.
of, Skip?
What?
Sorry, didn't mean
go
to
ahead.
interrupt. You know what it reminds me of, Skip, is this whole thing we see on social media now, these community standards. And actually, I'm going to bring this back to Geauga in two ways. One has to do with this ridiculous, hopefully soon failed social media platform called Nextdoor. You and I have talked about it a few times. I know some people who like that social media platform Nextdoor, and I will tell you, for my part, being a Geauga resident, I've tried, I think, 6 times to establish a profile and just see what people are talking about and what people are doing. And I make a point of always being respectful and courteous to people. I may disagree, but I want to talk to people about issues and post things. And 6 times I've had my profile canceled and turned off and blocked. And the answer, the reason that was given is actually really funny. I entered my name as John, Jon, and my last name. And I was under the auspices of a fictitious name, quote unquote. They said I violated community standards. Well, what they did each time is all it takes is somebody saying they were upset by me, and I was kicked off. That is so. Now I ignore them. They're just a leftist. It's like this blue sky. They're ridiculous. It's an echo chamber of leftism. But my point is that once you have this moniker of violation of community standards, then anything goes. If you don't like how somebody looks one day or something, or their baseball cap or something, you can say that's a violation of community standards, and poof, their profile's gone. That seems to be the same sort of approach to access to government. But let's flip this. The way that government is supposed to work is exactly the opposite. The way that government is supposed to work, and you just hearken back to what happened with Josh Mandel. When Josh Mandel worked in the State House, he created something called Ohio Checkbook, where you could go anytime you want and see where the money was flowing. And he worked really hard, and he built the thing. Now it's fallen into disarray because we've gotten more bad actors in there who hate it. They don't want us to know where the money is going, where the waste, fraud, and abuse are. That Ohio Checkbook, that's actually good government. That creates the ability for us to look into what's happening, ask questions, dig around. People like me who love to research and drill down into the numbers. Where is the money flowing? Who's getting paid for what services, and is the payment reasonable, and what are the conflicts of interest? That is the job of we the people. And when you create things like this preposterous notion of this Ohio House Bill 314, it moves us in the opposite direction and says, how dare you ask questions of your government? How dare you? You must not. And they'll have this whole thing that works kind of like community standards if they pass this ridiculous bill, and be able to just wave a magic wand and silence people, which is the other way that I want to bring us back to Geauga County. Recent commissioners' meetings have seen our commissioners very sad. They've gotten very sad and upset because we the people, have gone in and spoken. That seems to be very daunting. That's very upsetting to at least two of the three commissioners in Geauga County. And we're talking about Jim Dvorak and Carolyn Brakey, who made the choice to mute and silence and put extreme time limitations. And I believe it was at one point Carolyn Brakey was asking during a recent expression of outrage on the part of citizens, said, well, can't we just limit the amount of time that they have? Like, that she's just viewing down her nose at the ruffians, at the peons. That is the opposite of good government. If we want good government, we need access to information. We need to be able to ask questions. And for heaven's sakes, we need to be able to go in and tell the people who we hire to do a job, hey, you're off the mark. You've gotten off the rails. You're doing a bad job. That's our job. That is the public. And if you're one of those people who ever says of the people, by the people, and for the people, that's what that's supposed to look like. Right, Skip?
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm going to tell people, if you live in Geauga County, or Lake County as far as that goes, in any of the counties that can hear us, there's going to be a meeting at the Bainbridge Public Library tonight at 6:30 on property tax. And so it's an opportunity for you to come and express your voice about and what I feel is going to be, I may be wrong, but the county auditor is going to go in there, and I think it's going to be fear-mongering and propaganda, and they're trying to scare people out of voting for or putting their signatures on the property tax initiative. But it's an opportunity for the public to show up and express themselves. So come to the public library. The room is going to be filled, but you can always, it's a public library, so you can always stand outside, you can always go inside and express yourself. So I invite you to go do that. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I'm still searching for the word that I'm trying to think of. But it's really tamping down. This change to the Public Records Act is really an attempt to tamp down people who want to seek information, to get educated, to become informed. And that's what public information requests are about. Yes, some people overuse it. And so they may make too many requests, or if they're not educated on how to make a public information request, they may ask for everything under the sun. But there are mechanisms built into the law, and I see we're coming up on a break, to correct that situation for the public entity to push back on it. So we'll go ahead, Jonathan, take us into the break. When we come out the other side, we can continue this.
Yeah, I'm not going to miss this one. I see the countdown timer. We are going into a break. Remember, you can join the conversation at 440-946-9468. Also, find us on social media. Don't forget to share this with friends. Let's get word out and expand the audience. The more people that know what's really happening locally and in our government, the more we're likely to fight back successfully. More on the other side of the break.
Listening audience on our channels, we muted the mics earlier because I had gotten word yesterday that some of our comments were going out over the radio air. It was we were walking on the commercial break, and so I muted the mic so we could talk about that with our control room and see if there was a problem there or not. But in any case, so we're going to continue through the break, and so hopefully of those people that I'm seeing on the Rumble channel, we'll see some people at the Bainbridge Library tonight. I'm going to be there as part of the press, Voice of Geauga, and we worked on a newspaper last night. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. It's getting ready to be published and come out, and I think it's going to be a wake-up call for some people.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm really excited about this. I was very excited when I saw the first rough sketches and the drafts of it, and it's just they're your hard work mostly, Skip. You've poured yourself into it, and you've made tremendous refinements, and it just, every time I see the latest rough, it is better and better looking. I think, Geauga, you are going to love this new launch. We're finding ways to get information out to the public, and I'm excited about it. It's much needed. Skip, when we come back, I've got a comment that I'd like to read that I think is spectacular on the issue of property tax, just to kind of set the stage a little bit for tonight's thing at the library.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have some effect. We're affecting things. And it's going to get. We're doing a stepping stone thing, so we're moving forward. The paper is one step in the right direction, and there's more coming. So it's going to be, if we're successful, and knock on wood, say a little prayer to the Lord, it'll be a game changer.
That's what it's all about.
But it takes everybody. I mean, this effort really takes all hands on deck. And so, Jonathan, you and I are very engaged. We spend a lot of time on this. But we need other people pulling on the oars. And so I'm going to encourage everybody that's listening on any of our channels to get involved and make a positive difference in how our government operates. We just had our two commissioners that Jonathan talked about earlier yesterday talk about raising taxes. And so it's a minor tax. It's a bed tax that's charged on people that stay in hotels and bed and breakfast and stuff in Geauga County. But why put that little burden on people, and which is a negative? So people stay at a bed and breakfast. Now they're going to get a bed tax on top of the other taxes they have to pay and everything. It's kind of a silly thing. But
Skip, you add them all together, and they're not silly, because I still am just mystified that I'm going to give one example of thousands.
30 seconds, gentlemen. 30 seconds.
Thousands of them. If you look at a car from Pennsylvania, they've got those stickers they have to put in the window. Those are $160 a piece, plus the sticker on your license plate, plus if you have a septic system, you got to pay whatever it is, $100 a quarter now. They're just constantly layering new taxes and fees in.
10 seconds, gentlemen. 10 seconds.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Voice of Geauga on WINT Radio with Skip Claypool, myself, Jonathan Broadbent, and we're talking about a couple of things today. One has to do with the freedom of information and our ability to get access to government information. That means our taxes and where our tax dollars are going, etc. This applies at the federal, at the state, and at the local level. There may be different laws that apply, federal versus state, but ultimately the objective is the same. We want smart people to be able to look over the shoulder of the people that we elect into office and question things. And it's anytime, I don't care what the environment is. Anytime you see somebody saying, well, no, you shouldn't really want to look at this. It's only $100 billion of your taxpayer dollars, but just trust us. Don't really, you don't want to look. Why would you want to actually look at how we're spending money? That's ridiculous. That's immediate sign to me. You want to triple your efforts to look at what's actually happening. In order to set the stage for tonight's library discussion, and I'm with Skip, I'm suspicious of what's going to be pitched, and it's probably going to be more fear-mongering. And a couple of talking heads that are going to come in and tell us that the world's going to end if we try to rein in the abuse of tax structures. But so here's a quote that I found on social media. There's a Dan McCormick who was responding to Ryan, and his last name escapes me, but he's been very involved in the push to abolish Ohio property taxes. Dan McCormick says, Ryan, I would suggest you consider that since you and your group didn't create the problem, you aren't responsible for offering a detailed replacements. Here in Franklin County, we have many things on our tax bill that grow government. We have many things on our tax bill that grow exponentially to the market, are paid for by us, even when the entities exist outside the county, and pay for obligations of the state to the benefit of other counties that don't have to pay. Having worked on anti-tax campaigns successfully, it was never our responsibility to provide an alternative to their egregious request. Those elected officials that have accelerated the burden are largely responsible for the effort to repeal what they did. Those who seem to think you need to come up with a solution are, based on my experience, wrong. The only way to solve many of the problems related to government and overtaxing is to turn off the spigot. It forces those that created the problem to finally deal with it. I think that that's a poignant comment. All of this stuff of like, well, gosh, oh no, if we repeal Ohio property taxes, we're going to lose in police and fire and EMS and first responders, and our schools will collapse. No, they won't. Those will continue on. In the great, well-said words of Lake County Commissioner John Plechnik, who supports the abolishment of property taxes, what will happen is that forces a right-sizing and transparency in the taxing structure, which we absolutely right now do not have. I notice you're watching some of the comments in Rumble. Skip, do you want to cut over to those, or do you have some response to what I just said?
I'm watching some of the responses on, and there's Nana Cheryl said, well, I was just silenced, also blocked from sharing information for support of Wycliffe Schools Facebook page. All I did was share, and the government doesn't want our voices heard. I mean, that's a common theme, and it's worse in the blue cities and areas than it is in the red areas, but we have a problem across the board. It's interesting. Somebody made a comment to me a day or so ago about how we elect people, and they're all excited. And I can think of a female county commissioner that we currently have who wanted nothing but transparency, nothing about lowering taxes and getting rid of the chaos in the office and all these promises. And then they get into the office, and all of a sudden they discover that spending people's money is easy and it makes them look good and it's fun. And so they come up with all these ways of spending money and of reducing transparency. So we're going to reduce the public comment period. So we don't want to hear from people who don't like what we're doing. Let's try and shut that down. You can't completely shut it down because oftentimes people run on transparency and how they care about the people that are electing them. And so it's interesting how people get brainwashed once they get into office. Now, there's a few people that doesn't happen with. And so I'm probably not in elected office today because I was one of those that just didn't like to play the game and didn't make decisions based on spending other people's money. Actually, my objective was to reduce taxes, which I think is very possible to do. But it's interesting to watch the political class as they get into office. Jerry Serino's a perfect example of that, and I could list. I probably shouldn't mention names to get me into trouble. But people, run, get everybody excited about all the good things they're going to do, and then they get into office and they disappoint us. And so that's discouraging, but the only way to keep them on track is to stay engaged and to visit with them and say, hey, look, remember when you said, and this is what you're doing, and how come you're not living to your promises? There are a few people that stand up. I know Ralph Spitaleri, the other day at the meeting when they were talking about the bed tax, pushed back on their effort to raise that tax, and not everybody.
Well, Skip, that's the inherent.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm stepping on your toes again. That's the inherent byproduct of when I went in. I've commented on this several times. I went in several weeks ago when I discovered that we were redoing a county elected official's office for $400,000. We're spending $400,000 to luxuriate a county official's office. That's ridiculous. We don't need to be spending that kind of money, and that's one little tiny example. And we have a lot of conversation that's taken place recently about millions of dollars that flooded in with excess tax revenue, etc. And poof, it just evaporated. It bought luxury items, and people within county government just glad-handed and schmoozed each other and bought each other luxurious gifts. And I don't know where the money went. It's just ridiculous. But there's a great two things on that. One is I would love to see us get back to the concept of citizen legislature. Those are people that actually have real jobs in life and go to work for government as a civil servant. Just saying, you know what, I will commit a block of time to going and helping to make sure that our government is run well and efficient and effective. And they set aside their job for a couple of years to go and serve some role. Those are not people who are trying to make $160,000 a year for 5 hours a week, hardly show up, try to ignore the public, or whatever kind of salary they're making, plus all the goodies and retirement benefits and bonus and gold-plated health care. And that what we've done to government is ridiculous. And we allow these people to put themselves on a pedestal and behave as if they're some sort of extra godlike class. And it's infuriating. Here's a comment that I see from, I pulled it this morning actually, from Conservative Twins. I like them, I follow them on social media. President Trump has tapped J.D. Vance to lead a full-scale war on fraud, and the backlash has already begun. If we find enough fraud, we'll have a balanced budget. That's a direct quote, apparently, from last night. This is about rooting out corruption, stopping abuse of taxpayer dollars, and restoring accountability. That's terrific, and most people, at least on our side of the aisle, and most listeners to this broadcast, will probably lovingly agree with that. However, when we look at what's happening at the county level, and what you just brought up, trying to add more taxes and this bed tax, and then this new tax on anyone with a septic system, and the fees and fines and penalties, and now we see this spread of these cameras all over taking pictures of your car, and if you allegedly violate something, they're going to send you a bill in the mail. That is layers and layers and layers of fees and fines and taxes and penalties, and it siphons money out of average, regular, ordinary citizens and into the pockets of government where they do things like buy themselves $400,000 office renovations. That's simple math. I work in finance, but you don't have to work in finance and understand the basic concepts of financial matters to understand that in order for the $400,000 office to be built, you have to take from the taxpayer. And instead of raising taxes, what they do is keep adding new taxes. Well, you know who else has done that? California, big parts of Michigan, New York State. They tax, fee, fine, and penalize virtually everything that breathes, moves, walks, drives, you name it. We're headed in that direction in Geauga County. And the climate action plan, yes, I recognize we're coming up on a break here. I will take us into the break, Skip, recognizing that this climate action plan and the agenda of this unelected group of bureaucrats in downtown Cleveland trying to take over and replace local government with edicts and mandates in Lake, Geauga, Medina, Lorain, and Cuyahoga counties is awful. It's another example of tax and spend, centralized government, and centralized control that just punishes the people, siphons our money out, and gives it to the hands of some really bad miscreants. Join the conversation at 440-946-9468. More on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
All right, thanks, Thomas. All right, so mics on the radio show are now off. We're seeing some interesting comments here. Names need to be mentioned. Yeah, so Nana Cheryl, to your comment, here's the crazy thing. And you may know that I served as a board member, chair, and territory lead of Protect Ohio Children. I actually helped to create the Academic Accountability Project for Ohio. It was Omar Tarazi, and I created that. I literally, and I think you may have seen this, it's specific to Wycliffe schools. I can literally go on to the Ohio Department of Education webpage, make a screen capture of information about a school like Wycliffe, post it on Facebook, and get a tidal wave of hate in return. That people call me, I'm sorry to laugh, but it's just comical. People call me anti-school because I'm posting the information that is literally published to the Ohio Department of Education from Wycliffe schools. That's how broken some people's brains have become. So you're right, but it cannot mean that we just give in and let the left win, because from everything I'm able to ascertain, they hate children, they hate education, they hate America, they hate capitalism, they love anything that is divisive, that destroys America, attacks our values, that degrades and demoralizes police and military. We cannot let that fly. So it's up to us to just continue to calmly keep posting these things, I think.
Yeah. The more we call it out and pay attention to it, the best disinfectant is sunlight, and all the cockroaches scurry when you turn the lights on. So we need to get those cockroaches scurrying
30 seconds.
a little bit, because they hate it. I mean, they expose who they are. When you start showing up and start asking questions, many public officials are pretty good at tap dancing. I mean, they will do the jig and the song, and they're pretty good at it. So, but others, not so good. They expose themselves. So.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool, myself, Jonathan Broadbent. Remember, you can join the conversation at 440-946-9468. We're talking about how to shape and define transparency and accountability in government. One thing it occurs to me to mention, if you were in Geauga County or anywhere in America, you might expect that one place you can look for transparency and accountability on the part of elected political officials is your local Republican Party. I'm among those, and there are many of us, who are pushing for our Republican Party to do exactly that. If we allow that moniker of Republican to be attached to an individual, and we put the weight, financial strength, resources, and power of the Republican brand behind a person, if they fail us in office, I'm of the opinion they need to be called out, not reelected. So that is something to pay close attention to, and that relates back to your local representative on the Republican Party, and that's referred to as a precinct committeeman. You have one, or you should, in Geauga County and elsewhere, all throughout the nation. There's a local representative, and if some of these issues we bring up concern you, find that person and engage in conversation, get to know them, and tell them that you expect accountability, you expect action on the part of your Republican Party. During the break, something came up from the comments. We have Nana Sherrill, 62, is commenting about Wycliffe schools, and made the comment that, and Skip read part of it, it's a series of comments having to do with people on Facebook pushing back and being hostile toward this person, Nana Sherrill, simply because they were posting things about Wycliffe schools, like having to do with the performance of Wycliffe schools. So in case you didn't know this, listening audience, I helped create the Ohio Academic Accountability Project with another gentleman by the name of Omar Tarazi. He and I created it, and effectively, we go to the Ohio Department of Education webpage, where there's all kinds of information about what's happening in local precincts, or local school districts rather, near you. I literally have had the experience of going and creating a screen capture of information published on the Ohio Department of Education website from school districts and posting it on social media, and then having people tell me that I hate schools and that I'm some kind of bad guy. All I'm doing is posting viable, tangible information. So that's madness. My suggestion is ignoring those people and continuing to post on those anyway. Let's skip your comment. I think resonates, it rings true. The best disinfectant is daylight. What were you saying about that, Skip?
Yeah, I mean, and I want to come back. Just whenever you start to get involved and you ask questions that expose somebody's their heart, they can't hide forever. And so the reality is, people eventually expose who they are. They just can't help it. It comes out in the way that they vote and the things that they say. And so over time, the campaign rhetoric that may have gotten somebody elected that veil is gonna fall away, and you're gonna see who they are. Now, some people are good, and we want to re-elect them, and some people not so good, and we want to work to get them unelected. But people get exposed when you get involved. When people make public information requests, and we should make public information requests on this $400,000. We don't want to misjudge, the remodeling effort. Maybe it's a really broad, complicated activity, and we could discover what that is. You make a public information request, and we discover that, oh, geez, we're wrong. We misjudged that situation. Or maybe we discover, no, it's a luxurious chairs and seats and new technology and stuff that aren't necessary. And by the way, on the public information request, I wanted to make this comment real quick before we end the program today. If you care about holding people accountable, then everybody listening to this program, all the radio listeners, all the live stream listeners, you need to get a hold of your Ohio State representatives today and tell them to vote no on this House Bill 314 and put a nail in the coffin, because that cannot happen. This change will stymie public information requests, and it won't be good because the people in office who will use this will just be mean-spirited about it, and anytime somebody makes a public information request that they don't like, then they're going to say, oh, I deem that to be harassing, and then they're going to sue somebody. They can use public dollars to sue a citizen. Well, the citizen has to use their private dollars to fight it and or to sue them for not responding to a public information request. So the system is really screwed up in that way. If you make a public information request and somebody in the public office doesn't respond to you, your only recourse by law is to take them to common pleas court to sue them. And that's expensive unless you know how to do a pro se lawsuit. And even then, it takes up a lot of time and a lot of effort. There should be a different way under the law. They kind of made it difficult for people to hold people accountable. But if this passes, House Bill 314, that is going to be really stymie and put a wet blanket on people wanting to make public information requests because there's going to be risk associated with it. So call your representatives, both your Senate representatives and your state House representatives, and say, this is a ridiculous, but first of all, it was offered by a Democrat. I'm hoping that the Republicans are smart enough not to go along with it. But you can never count on our Republicans today because they horse trade. And so tell them, no, shoot this thing down, put it to bed now, take it off the table. And so call your representatives today. I'm calling Steve Demetrio and Sarah Fowler and saying, put this thing to bed.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I'm going to pause right there and recognize the sponsor of this episode, and that is Great Lakes Outdoor Supply. If you have opportunity to get to Middlefield, and I think you should, hop in your car and drive over to Middlefield. I won't blame you if you wait until the weather is a little nicer, but it's starting to break a little bit. Head on over to Middlefield and check out Great Lakes Outdoor Supply. It is like a playground of outdoor goodies and cool stuff to check out.
And they're having some sales, Jonathan, so they're always having sales. So you need to track the sales. They always have sales literature on their website and or it's being mailed out to people in Geauga County. So check their sales. You can get some great deals on firearms and pocket knives and fishing gear. And fact is, you want to know what I heard yesterday? They may be looking at putting pickleball equipment in the sporting goods store.
Oh,
and
there you go.
Great luck then. Yeah, no, that's hot. Apparently the Amish play pickleball. Who knew?
I did not know that.
I did not either.
There's also a location in Chesterland. So Skip's right. Get a hold of your representatives. Share this information. Over time, we hope to build out contact information and help inform people on easy, straightforward, great ways to get involved and push back against things like this House Bill 314. It's being proposed and it's awful.
Yeah,
So
I'll post the. You can always go to the Ohio. Just type in Google Ohio Legislature House Bill 314, and it'll come up, and you can read it for yourself. You look for the underlined section, the changes to the bill. They list the whole existing law, and then changes to the law are underlined. So you look for the underlined
Skip,
sections.
We're going to also, Skip, we're coming up on the conclusion of the show. We're also going to try to find and post contact information for people like Sarah Fowler Arthur and Steve Demetrio. This has been another episode of Voice of Geauga. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.